Welcome to Dream Stories by Dasha, your space for sleep, calm, and gentle night stories. Here you will find everything for your best sleep. If you enjoy this channel, don't forget to subscribe and like this video so you don't lose this place of peace. Now, close your eyes and slowly let go. The lighthouse stood far from everything, not just far from the nearest town, but far from anything that could be called familiar. It rose from a narrow strip of rock where the sea never truly rested. Waves did not crash there with anger. They moved steadily, relentlessly, as if they had been repeating the same motion for centuries. The keeper had lived there for many years, long enough to forget exactly when he had arrived, long enough that the mainland no longer felt like home. His name was Elias, though no one had called him that in a very long time. Each day followed the same pattern. He woke before the light reached the horizon, climbed the narrow spiral stairs, checked the lamp, cleaned the glass, watched the sea. There was comfort in repetition, no surprises, no sudden changes, and yet it was the nights that defined the place, because the nights did not belong entirely to him. At first, the fog had seemed ordinary. It rolled in slowly from the horizon, thick, heavy, silent. It swallowed the sea, then the rocks, then the lower part of the tower itself. Elias had grown used to it, at least he believed he had, until the first time he heard the voice. It was not loud, not sudden, not even clearly a voice at first, just something different. A sound that did not belong to the sea. He had been standing by the window, looking out into the fog, as he often did. There was nothing to see, only shifting white and gray. And then he heard it, a faint murmur. So quiet that he almost dismissed it as imagination. But it came again, not from inside the lighthouse, not from behind him, from outside, from the fog itself. Elias did not move immediately. He had lived long enough in isolation to understand one thing. Not every sound required a reaction. Still, he listened. The murmur shifted slightly, almost forming words, but not quite, like a voice remembered from a dream. He stepped closer to the glass. The fog pressed softly against the window, unmoving, endless. And for a moment, he thought he saw something. Not a shape, not a figure, just a slight change in the density of the mist. Then it was gone. The voice faded with it, and the night returned to its usual silence. Elias stood there for a long time. He told himself it was nothing, The mind does strange things in isolation. It fills emptiness, creates patterns, finds meaning where there is none. By morning, he had almost convinced himself, but the next night, the fog returned, and so did the voice. This time, it was clearer, not loud, not urgent, but unmistakably human. He could not understand the words, not fully, but he felt something in them. Not fear, not warning, something closer to memory. As if the voice was not speaking to him directly, but remembering something out loud, Elias remained still, listening. The lighthouse light turned slowly above him, casting its steady beam into the endless fog. And for the first time since he had come to this place, he felt something change. Not in the world around him, but in the way he was part of it. The isolation no longer felt complete, because something else was out there. And it was not just passing by, it was returning. The second night did not feel the same. Elias noticed it before the fog even arrived. There was something in the air, not tension, not danger, something like anticipation. The sea was quieter than usual, not calmer, just waiting. He moved through his routine as always, checked the lamp, adjusted the horizon fade into evening, but this time he found himself listening, not to anything specific, just listening, as if something might begin at any moment. And when the fog came, it came faster. Not slowly rolling across the water like before. It rose, as if it had been there all along, just waiting to be seen. Within minutes, the world disappeared again. The rocks below the lighthouse vanished. The sea dissolved into white. Only the tower remained. Elias stood by the window once more. He did not tell himself it was nothing this time. He waited. And it did not take long. The voice returned, clearer now, closer, not a murmur anymore, but still too soft to fully understand. It was faint, almost lost before it finished forming, but it was real. Elias felt something tighten inside him, not fear, recognition, not of the word itself, but of the feeling behind it, as if he had heard it before, long ago. The fog outside the glass seemed thicker now, not just dense, but layered. As if something was moving within it, not visible, not defined, but present. The voice came again. Don't then silence. Elias did not move. His hand rested lightly against the cold glass. The lighthouse beams swept across the fog, again and again. And for a moment, just for a moment, he saw something, a shape, not clear enough to describe, not solid enough to believe, but something that did not belong to the fog. Then it vanished. The voice faded with it, and the night returned. But this time, it did not feel empty. Elias stepped back slowly. His thoughts were no longer calm, not scattered, but awake. He had spent years in silence, years without interruption. And now, something was speaking. Not loudly, not directly, but deliberately. The next nights came with the same pattern: fog, voices, fragments, sometimes only one word, sometimes something longer, but never complete. But because he needed to see them outside his mind, each morning he would sit at the small wooden table and look at the words. They did not form sentences, not yet, but they carried weight, the kind of weight that does not come from language, but from meaning. And slowly a thought began to form, not fully, not clearly, but enough to disturb the stillness he had once known. The voices were not random. They were not echoes. They were not the sea. They were not his imagination. They were trying to say something, and more than that, they were speaking to someone who understood. Elias stood again at the window that night. The fog already waiting, the voices already close, and for the first time, he spoke back. "Who are you?" The words felt strange in the air, heavy, unfamiliar. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the fog shifted, not moving away, not opening, but reacting. And from within it came an answer, clearer than anything before, you know? Elias froze. The lighthouse light turned slowly above him, and for the first time since the voices began, he felt something close to fear. Not of what was out there, but of what he might remember. Elias did not answer right away. The words lingered in the air. You know? They did not sound threatening, not urgent, but certain, as if whoever spoke them was not asking, but reminding. He stepped back from the window. For the first time since the voices began, he felt something unfamiliar in the lighthouse. Not loneliness, not silence, but presence. The room seemed smaller somehow, the walls closer, the air heavier. He looked at the notebook on the table. The scattered words stared back at him. Wait, don't, remember. He left. He had written them carefully, as if precision might make them easier to understand. But now, they felt less like fragments and more like pieces of something unfinished. That night, he did not sleep, not out of fear, but because something in him had begun to shift. Memories, not clear ones, not full images, just impressions. A shoreline that did not belong to this place. A voice calling his name. A hand reaching, then disappearing. By morning, the fog had gone. The sea returned to its usual rhythm, steady, endless, but Elias knew something had changed. The silence was no longer empty. It was waiting. The following evening came slower than usual, or perhaps he noticed it more. Every sound seemed sharper, every shadow more defined. When the fog arrived again, he was already standing by the window, waiting. This time, the voices did not take long. They came together, not one, not two. Many, layered, soft. Like distant conversations heard through walls. At first, he could not separate them. Then one voice began to stand out. The boat. Another followed. It was dark. Then another. You said we had time. Elia felt his chest tighten. The words were no longer random. They were forming something. A memory. Not his alone, but shared. The fog outside shifted again, and this time, the shape appeared more clearly, still not fully visible, still not solid. But closer. It stood just beyond the reach of the lighthouse beam, waiting. Elias did not move. He knew, without understanding how, that if he stepped outside, he would see more. The thought came without warning, and it did not feel like his own. Becoming one. You remember now. Elias closed his eyes, and for a moment, everything came back, not as a full story, but as a single moment. But personally, the lighthouse light swept across it again, and this time, for just a second, he saw a face, not clearly, not fully, but enough to know one thing. He had seen it before, long ago. And whatever had happened on that night had not stayed in the past. Elias did not move. The face in the fog had already faded, but the feeling it left behind remained. Not fear, something heavier, something that had been waiting for a very long time. The shape was still there, not gone, not closer, just present. Elias placed his hand against the glass. It was colder than usual. Or perhaps he noticed it more now. The voices returned, but not like before. No longer scattered, no longer overlapping. One voice, clear. You didn't come back. The words settled into the room. Not accusing, not angry, just true. Elias swallowed slowly. He tried to respond, but the words did not come easily. His voice felt unfamiliar, like something he had not used in years. I don't remember everything. Silence followed. Not empty silence, the kind that listens. Then the fog shifted again. The shape moved slightly closer, still blurred, still unfinished, but no longer distant. Elias closed his eyes again. The memory did not come all at once. It returned in pieces. The boat, small, wooden. The night, too dark, too quiet. Voices behind him, 3 of them. One laughing softly, one speaking too quickly, one saying nothing at all. Then the sea changed, not violently, but suddenly. A shift in the water, a movement that did not belong. And then the memory stopped. Elias opened his eyes. The fog pressed closer to the glass now, the shape clearer, and this time there was more than one. Another figure, then another, not fully formed, but present. The lighthouse light passed over them, and for a brief moment, they stood almost visible. 3 shapes, waiting. Elias stepped back. His breathing slowed, not from calm, but from something deeper. Understanding. Not complete, but enough. Yes. The word came from all of them. Soft, together. Elias looked at the notebook again. The words suddenly felt different. Not messages, fragments of something that had already happened. What happened? He asked. The question hung in the air. The lighthouse beam turned again, and the fog changed, not retreating, opening, just slightly. Enough for something to be seen. The sea, but not the sea as it was now. The sea as it had been that night. Dark, heavy, unfamiliar. And within it, the boat. Elias stared. not as memory now, but as something being shown, replayed. You laughed, the voices said again, not accusing, just repeating. Elias shook his head slightly. No, I didn't. But the words stopped, because now he saw it clearly. Himself, standing in the boat, looking back, hesitating. And then, turning away, the scene faded instantly. The fog returned. The shapes remained. Elias stood frozen. The truth was not complete, but it was no longer hidden. And the voices were not asking anymore. They were waiting for him to understand the rest. Elias did not step away this time. He stood where he was, facing the fog, facing the shapes, facing what he had avoided for years without knowing it. The sea behind them was gone again. The vision had closed, but something had changed. The memory was no longer distant. It was closer now. Not just something he saw, but something he felt. The cold of the night, the weight of the air, the tension in the boat. He could feel it again. The voices spoke softly. You remember. Elias nodded slowly. Part of it. The shapes did not move, but their presence grew heavier, not threatening, but real. Then remember the rest. The words were calm, not forcing, but inevitable. Elias closed his eyes once more. This time, he did not resist. The memory returned fully. The boat was too small for 4 people. He saw it clearly now. The water had been calm at first. Too calm. The kind of calm that hides something beneath it. They had argued, not loudly, but with the quiet urgency of people who already knew something was wrong. There's too much weight, one of them had said. We'll make it, another answered. Elias had remained silent, watching the horizon, pretending there was still time. Then the shift came. The boat tilted slightly. Water touched the edge. No panic, not yet. But the truth had already arrived. They would not all make it. Elias felt it again. That moment, the decision, not spoken, not agreed upon, but understood. He had moved first, not violently, not suddenly, just enough. He had stepped away from the center, toward the side, toward survival, toward the lighthouse that stood somewhere in the distance. Behind him, the others remained, too slow, too unsure. Too late, the memories stopped there. Elias opened his eyes. The fog remained. The shapes were closer now, not just outlines anymore. Faces, faint but unmistakable. The same ones from the boat, the same ones he had left behind. "You chose," the voices said softly, not accusing, not judging, just stating what was. Elias exhaled slowly. "Yes." The word felt heavier than anything he had said in years. The lighthouse light turned again. The beam passed over them, and for the first time, they did not fade. They remained. "We stayed," the voices continued. "And you lived." Elias lowered his head slightly. There was no defense, no explanation, because the truth did not need one. The silence that followed was different, not empty, complete. Then something unexpected happened. The fog began to change, not thickening, not fading, softening. The shapes stepped closer, not fully into the light, but closer than before. And the voice spoke again. "We did not come for anger." Elias looked up slowly. "We came because you stayed here." The words settled around him. "Because you never left that night." Elias frowned slightly. "I did leave." The fog shifted gently. "Your body did." A pause. "But you remained." The lighthouse light turned once more, and suddenly Elias understood. He had never truly left the sea, never left that moment, never left them. The lighthouse was not just a place, it was where he had stayed, where the memory had held him, where the choice had never fully ended. The voices were not calling him back. They were showing him what had always been. And now, for the first time, he was ready to see it. Elias did not speak. The realization stayed with him, not as a sudden shock, but as something that slowly settled into place. The lighthouse around him felt different now. Not smaller, not larger, but more familiar. As if it was no longer just where he lived, but something that had been built around him, or perhaps from him. The fog remained outside, soft, endless. The figures stood closer than before, not threatening, not distant, waiting. Elias looked at them carefully, for the first time, not as shapes, not as memories, but as people. He could almost see them clearly now. The one who had laughed, the one who had argued, the one who had said nothing. Each of them exactly as they had been, not changed, not aged, held in the same moment where everything had stopped. "Why now?" he asked quietly. The question came naturally, not out of fear, but from understanding. The fog shifted gently. "Because you can see us now." Elias lowered his gaze slightly. "I've been here all this time." "Yes," a pause, "but you were not looking." The words did not hurt. They did not accuse. They simply revealed. Elias let that settle. Years had passed, or what felt like years. Days repeating, nights unchanged, the lighthouse light turning endlessly above him. He had believed it was routine, a life chosen. But now it felt like something else. A pause, a place where nothing moved forward, where nothing could end. Because something had never been completed. "What happens now?" he asked. The figures did not answer immediately. The silence that followed was deeper than before, not empty, full. As if the answer was not something to be given, but something to be understood. Elias stepped closer to the window. The glass no longer felt like a barrier, just a surface between two parts of the same moment. The lighthouse beam turned again, and as it passed over the fog, something changed. Not in the shapes, but in the sea beyond them. It began to appear again, faint at first, then clearer. The same night, the same water, the same boat, but this time it did not stop where it had before. The memory continued. Elias watched. He saw himself move, not just stepping aside, but turning, looking back one last time. There had been hesitation, not long, but real. And then he had chosen, not survival alone, but distance. He had moved toward the lighthouse, toward safety, away from the others. The boat had shifted again, too far. Water entered, voices rose, then stopped. The memory did not show what came after. It didn't need to. Elias closed his eyes. The weight of it was no longer sharp, no longer something to resist, just something that had been. "You left us in that moment," the voices said softly, "and you stayed with it ever since." Elias opened his eyes slowly. "I didn't know. You didn't need to know." Another pause. "You only needed to see." The fog shifted again, and now the figure stood almost fully visible, not trapped, not lost. Simply present, waiting, not for him to suffer, but for something else. Elias felt it before he understood it. A choice, not the same as before, not about survival, but about something deeper, whether to remain in this place where nothing changed, or to finally let the moment end. The lighthouse light turned again, slow, steady, unchanging, but now, for the first time, it felt like something that could stop. Elias stood quietly by the window. The lighthouse light turned above him as it always had, slow, steady, endless. But now, it no longer felt like something watching over the sea. It felt like something waiting for him to decide. The fog outside was no longer heavy, not threatening, just present. And within it, the figures remained, close now, fully visible, not as ghosts, not as echoes, but as what they had always been. The people from that night, the ones who had trusted him to choose differently. Elias closed his eyes. For a long time, he said nothing, not because there was nothing to say, but because anything spoken now would belong to the past, and the past no longer needed words, only recognition. He exhaled slowly. I see it now. The fog did not respond immediately. Then, softly, yes, Elias nodded slightly. There was no anger in their voices, no demand, no judgment left, only presence, only what had always remained unspoken. Elias looked at them one last time, and for the first time since the night of the boat, he did not look away, not even slightly. I stayed in that moment, he said quietly, not as an excuse, not as explanation, just truth. The fog shifted gently. You did, a pause. But you don't have to stay anymore. The words were simple, but they carried something final. Elias felt it then. Not release, not loss, but understanding. The lighthouse was not a prison. The fog was not punishment. The voices were not haunting him. They were simply the shape of a moment he had never fully left. And now, he had finally seen it completely. He turned slightly toward the lighthouse lamp. It still turned, still worked, still held the sea in its rhythm of light, but it no longer felt necessary in the same way. Elias stepped away from the window, slowly, calmly. He walked down the spiral stairs, each step familiar, each step final in its own way. The air inside the lighthouse felt different now, lighter, not because anything had changed outside, but because something inside had settled. He reached the base, the door. He paused, then opened it. The fog was still there, soft, endless, but it no longer pressed against him. It simply existed, and within it, the figures waited. Elias stepped outside. The rocks were damp beneath his feet. The sea moved quietly in the distance. No storm, no urgency, just the same night it had always been. He stood there for a long moment, then nodded once. Not goodbye, not apology. Just acknowledgement. The fog did not take him. It did not swallow him. It simply softened. And the figures slowly faded, not disappearing suddenly, but becoming part of the mist again, as if they had never been separated from it at all. Elias remained standing by the lighthouse. The light above continued its rotation, but now it felt different. Not watching over something lost, but simply turning, as things do when nothing is left unfinished. He looked out at the sea. For the first time in a very long time, there was nothing calling him back. No unfinished moment, no unanswered voice. Only the present, quiet, wide, complete. Aaliyah took one slow breath and stayed there, not trapped, not waiting, just present, as the fog gently moved around the lighthouse and the night continued on its own.